can I ask you to introduce yourselves?
Hey everyone, my name is Jonathan Orozco. I'm the development director at The Source in Vero Beach. We're a ministry that has been around for the last 30 years. And for the first 20 of those years, we were much like any other food pantry that you can imagine. But for the last 10, we've created some really innovative stuff that I'm excited to talk to you about.
Hi, I'm Jade. I get to work with Johnny every day at The Source in Vero. He's not the one I have to worry about. It's our boss. We really consider ourselves to be disruptive innovators of how we approach homelessness in our community, and hoping to share some of those ideas with you guys that you can implement here.
Good morning. Thanks for having me. Jacob Torner. I serve as the Vice President of Programs at the Task Force for Ending Homelessness. We're a leading organization providing services that address unsheltered and sheltered homelessness throughout 8 Florida counties, including here in Broward.
Thank you. Okay. The mic to ask some questions. I would like to say that at our VA we have a large catchment area that includes the Treasure Coast, and we've worked with The Source. Our outreach team has very much so, and we're very appreciative of everything you do. I can vouch for The Source. Okay, so Allie has come up with some really great questions, and I'm going to start with a two-parter. Where do you see the biggest increase in homelessness in your area coming from, and how has your community adjusted your resource allocation and response? Okay. Okay.
Well, I would say first and foremost, we all know that we're in an aging crisis of homelessness. So we continue to see a large volume of folks who are what I consider to be over the age of 51 is who I define as seniors. And that's very troubling. I also know that when you look at our population specifically in Broward County, we continue to have a high volume of families with minor children. And a lot of that stems from a lack of workforce resources and safety net resources for those single mothers who fall on hard times, are unable to get themselves out of that situation, and typically end up walking away from a home or being evicted forcefully.
Absolutely. So where you see the biggest increase in homelessness in your area, and as well how you've adjusted your response to that.
So we recently brought on a member of our team, Dale, who's our data guy. And so he's been able to really hone in on retrieving data from all our services and kind of pinpoint the areas where we need to improve our services. And one of the things that we've recently done, I'm not sure if I would say if it's the biggest thing, but the most recent thing is that we have started to just focus on our county a little bit more with services that we're providing so that we can get to a functional zero within our community. Once we get to that point, which we believe is very doable, you know, we may open it back up to other service areas, but right now we're just honing in on serving the people in our community.
So just to add to that, you know, one thing that I think differentiates us as an agency versus probably everyone in this room is that we don't participate in our continuum of care. We are standalone from that. And a big reason why is we don't take any HUD, we don't take any government funding at all of any kind. Every single thing that we do is all community-led or through the businesses that we have and the money that we're able to generate. So that being said, we still look at all of the reporting. We still do our own data. We still use an HMIS type system. But one of the things that I like to point at all of the time is the AHAR report. Does everyone know what that is? So you guys can go on your phones and search the AHAR report. The AHAR report, and I don't know the actual.
AHAR.
Yeah. But if you search that report and it's very long, but I believe on page like 81, you'll be able to find a section where they compare communities across the country, and for unsheltered, chronic homeless individuals, and that community's response to that problem. And for our community, we were the worst in the nation. Worse than California, worse than New York, everywhere that people said we don't want to be like them, we're worse. So for us, we decided that's the population we're going to target. We're going to target chronic, unsheltered individuals, because every single other program that we have has a barrier. You have to be a certain demographic to be able to participate in that, where we have no barriers. And we have created so many different programs that address every single need for a chronic homeless individual in a one-stop shop.
Awesome. Okay, so tell us a success story that required breaking a rule or bending a system or building an unusual partnership.
Sure. My favorite thing to talk about is our Elder Haven and Hope program. This is a program, I started off by talking about that aging crisis of homelessness. And the Elder Haven and Hope program is a program we started in Broward County now 12 years ago. And it started with just 3 beds in the back of a church facility who had some structure that was able to be used as a temporary shelter. And what we learned is that we needed more space for people who were not very appropriate to be placed in congregate environments due to health conditions and the number of other hazards that go along with it. And so we worked with a local municipality whose zoning restrictions would absolutely not allow us to do what we did. Maybe we did it a little bit before we got permission, maybe during the process. I'm not going to tell you all that. But most importantly is working to update really what are outdated policies or a policy in this particular municipality to allow people to share housing. And when we think about seniors, one of the things that often go along with senior citizens, not just in homelessness but in general, is loneliness. And so the ability to bring people together in a community environment that's not a congregate shelter but more of a home environment really enables them to thrive and recover and work on regaining stability. And the major success for us is we've had over 300 people come through that program. More than 85% of them left into permanent housing on their own, and 98% of them are still there today.
So we don't play by the rules at all. We're considered kind of like a black sheep of our community as far as non-profit organizations go, because we just do things very different than most. So probably all of our stories are unconventional of how we get people into housing and create success stories. I'll highlight the biggest one that I think, in my opinion, and Johnny could give his feedback. But we were running into zoning issues like many of you may struggle with. And so creating a brick and mortar shelter, transitional housing, that takes money, that takes time, that, a lot of red tape to go through. So we came up with the country's first ever mobile shelter. So we're able to house people, or shelter people, immediately when they come into our building. There's an intake process that they go through, and they can get shelter that night. We're not saying, oh, only men can come here, or only women and children can come here. It's everybody. So we try to remove a lot of the barriers. One of the stories that I can think of was a guy needed $20 to pay for his storage unit so that he can use the $20 to stay in housing. And he couldn't get $20 from anywhere. There was a lot of applications he had to go through, long waiting periods that you have to do before you can get approved to give somebody $20. So, if he had walked in through our doors, we would have just given him the $20, and that's the privileges we have because we don't have to go through any type of pre-approvals because we don't take funding, state, local funding. All of our funding comes from private donations, grants, and Johnny's the mastermind behind getting that for us. But that, another story I can think of is our Dignity Hospitality program that we have, where we actually trained someone how to work in the hospitality field, and then we hired them. And so we gave them a job, and then we gave them housing. And that took, in a matter of maybe 2 months, that he started making income and was housed. So just most of our stories sound like that. There's not a long waiting period. We're not trying to put people through create more trauma. All right, we're trying to get them housed as fast as possible. But when we do get them housed, we're not leaving them alone, and that's kind of where my job comes in, neighbor services director. So help them get into housing, but we stay with them and we walk through this journey with them. So I visit them often. You know, we have personal relationships. You know, they text me, and you know, you do have to have boundaries, but I make myself available because we're building community. You know, we consider these people family, and we're not just saying, here, come get this service, and, you know, out the door you go, and we never see you again, and we can't measure, you know, success rates that way, especially if you're dealing with people with mental health illness. You know, there's a lot of trust that needs to be built before they will even trust you to open themselves up to, you know, your advice, your mentorship, your help that they're offering. So the only way we really believe that we can do that is through community. We believe that the greatest cause of homelessness is a catastrophic loss of family. So we try to create that family.
Yeah, so, I mean, she touched on a lot of different things, but just to make one note on what she was talking about with the Dignity buses, we created this about 6 years ago now and have been operating 365 days every single night and helping people with now 3 buses in our community that we're operating. We also have built them. Every single one of them that was built by people coming out of homelessness that have construction experience, that have, you know, gifts and abilities that would allow us to be able to do this. And then on top of that, we've started to build these for communities across the country. So we have one in Rhode Island, one in Chicago. Orlando just purchased 2. And we are actually delivering, right now it's on a barge to go to St. Croix, the U.S. Virgin Islands. And just yesterday, we got confirmation that they're buying one in St. Thomas. So, you know, that's my little sales pitch of if your community needs beds extremely quickly for an affordable rate, this is an amazing program. But, you know, what I think everyone can agree with is that sometimes zoning and the red tape can be really, really difficult when you're trying to help people. So for us, you know, when we approached this emergency shelter, we realized that wasn't going to be the end-all, be-all for people. We needed to figure out housing. And affordable housing, I can't even afford the affordable housing in our community. It's just insane. So we had to create that. So we started with a motel that we purchased and renovated, and we still operate as a motel. And it was a deplorable condition facility, but the value was in the license, because we were able to operate and bring anybody that we wanted in there from daily, weekly, monthly rates and be able to set those as a business would, because it's been in operation. On top of that, we just got a 30-acre campus this last April with 9 buildings, and we're going to be able to house 99 people out there. Wow. So with that and a couple triplexes and a couple other different facilities, we're going to, we believe in the next 3 years, be able to eradicate homelessness, chronic unsheltered homelessness in our community.
That's amazing. Okay, well, a little bit more about collaboration. Can you tell us, give us some examples of collaborations that are working and some that maybe break down, and what you do with that, how you deal with that?
Yeah, I think more and more, you know, we have to focus on treating those people who are experiencing homelessness with the resources that actually meet their needs. And one of those is resources for support and recovery. And in the homeless continuum of care, traditionally, those resources are not often funded very well, if at all. So partnering on the continuum of care side, or as a continuum of care provider, if you're not the lead agency, with your managing entity is critical. And we've had tremendous success doing that, not just in Broward County, but as well in North Florida, in ensuring that our managing entity, which has millions of dollars for people to access support and recovery resources, oftentimes residential programs, which is most of the times what street outreach programs and those crisis services and continuum of cares need is a place to put people. And so I just encourage groups to not shy away from partnering with the recovery system of care and really look at it as an extra tool in the housing toolbox within your housing resources. And one of the things also to consider is that, like I mentioned, there are a number of residential programs for people to go into. And if you can leverage those residential beds while working to address whatever those, housing barriers are so that that person can discharge into a safe, stable place, then, it's a win-win for everyone. The person gets off the street, and the person also is able to go through a process that has a positive outcome.
So at our service center, we try to be a one-stop shop, everything in-house, so that we're not referring people outside a whole bunch. So we do have mental health counseling on site. So whereas the wait time to see a mental health counselor would be weeks to months, we could see them the same day they do the intake. We have the local clinic that comes and brings their truck on site. So they don't have to wait for appointments. They can get screened on site same day. And our local police department, sheriff department, and judges, they also are a big support of us. So once a month we have re-entry meetings. So if someone came to our facility and they just weren't following the rules, then we say, hey, you can't come back until you have a re-entry meeting. And that will consist of our staff. It will consist of the other homeless individuals who are on a member advisory board that they are made up of the homeless individuals that receive services from us, and a representative from the police department, sheriff's department, the re-entry coordinator from the local jail, and the judge on the 19th Court District. So we all come to the table and try to get to the bottom of why is this individual keep getting into issues in our community, because if when you go to jail, that costs money. That's taxpayers' money. So we want to prevent that. All right. So if you want to be here and use our services, everybody that we partner with comes and wraps their arms around this individual. And Johnny can talk a little bit more about the ones that aren't working so well.
Well, before I go into some of the ones that don't work too well, there was one thing that I think is really valuable in our community. We have a program called Dignity Smiles, where we actually do complete dental restoration for people. So before that, we would just have, teeth cleanings and extractions. And eventually you have no more teeth to extract, and you have a completely broken smile, and it's really hard to get a job, and everything just continues. So now we've partnered with 9 dentists who are doing complete restorations. And, we looked at just the cost of one of those. We had a guy named Kyle who hasn't had a full set of teeth since he was 14 years old. He's now, I think, 100. He's in his 50s or 60s, 63. And, he has a brand new smile, but when you look at the value of that, it was about $40,000 of implants that went into his mouth. And that is we have 26 cases like that now. So that's an amazing, amazing program. So one of the things I think that isn't working too well, and I did hear the commissioner talk a little bit about this problem, which is we have a problem with the hospitals, where the hospitals like to take people that are coming out that are homeless, treat them with the bare minimum, and then send them to our door. And we have people who are missing limbs. We have people who have active conditions that we don't have staff to deal with that. And they, have funded partners to do that, but it's too difficult to cross those barriers, so they just send them to us. And so we went to them and we said, we're not going to be accepting people from you anymore. And so the response to that was they were going to Uber people to the Publix down the road and tell them to walk. Oh my God. So, we deal with a lot of that kind of stuff. But like Jade said earlier, we're really kind of closing down who it is that we work with, how we do that, so that we can get to the end of solving this homelessness issue.
That was great. Okay. If we are going to gather my thoughts. Okay. So, you heard from our wonderful Wendy Tippett. If you were writing a 10-year plan today, what would you fund first, and what would you stop funding?
Well, I want to just go back to what he was talking about with the inappropriate discharges from hospitals, because I think it's important people know there's a bill right now in the legislature on the House side and the Senate side, and of course the number's not coming to me now that I'm talking about it. But everyone should go online and research this bill, reach out to your local state senator and your state representatives if it's something that you feel is important or beneficial. But essentially, the bill seeks to ensure that there's a bridge from hospitals and crisis and inpatient facilities into housing support and services, and does so with very clear oversight from state authorities. So we're looking forward to seeing that come through. So what do we fund? That's the magic question, right? And my answer to that is always going to be, what does your data say that the need is? We know that families with young children traditionally have great needs, but can usually get off of their, out of homelessness and back on their feet with very minimal assistance, whereas someone who's been in homelessness for a very long time, fits that chronic definition and may require a little bit more support services, needs more intensive wraparound supportive type of housing. When we think about what to fund, we know that we have to prioritize access. If people can't access our system, which includes our outreach workers, including clinical professionals that perform outreach, because gone are the days where you can expect that you're going to solve homelessness by asking people to come in and get support at a clinic or at a location. So funding support services for the streets in a way that's very significant, that recognizes that you need licensed professionals sometimes to empower folks to move on to that next step in their journey, is critical. But then once you have access covered, you also have to think about how are you getting people off of the streets and out of the unsheltered environment. And so I encourage communities to look at it as a state of emergency. The same way that if we were to have a storm tomorrow come to our community, our local elected officials, along with their charter officers that run these municipalities and jurisdictions, would have shelters and transitional environments set up in 12 to 24 hours. And that's an approach where we've seen success, such as in Denver, with major reductions in the unsheltered population in other communities. So really looking at it from an emergency standpoint and funding the resources that way, I think is a critical lens to go through.
My answer might be a little bit biased because of my role. So Johnny might say something differently than me, but I think just creating more affordable housing is where I'd put the focus on funding, because what we're trying to accomplish with the 30-acre property is building tiny homes on there so that we can house 99 people. Our point-in-time count, I forget the number, but how much was the point-in-time count for our under 200? And if we're going to be able to house 99 people, in the next 2 to 3 years, that's like half. And if they're, a lot of them are couples, the couples, you're addressing the issue is twice as fast. So. Not really, no. So I would focus more on creating affordable housing, because we do have the things in place where we'll help you with the first, last, and security. But when you get that, where do you go? We have wait lists for like years. That's unrealistic that those people will ever move out of those situations unless they pass away. And it's just backing it up. So you have all the funding to help prevent homelessness. This is great. You have the funding to help people move in quicker. This is great. But where do they go? And so in my opinion, it would be focused on just creating more affordable housing, things that people can actually afford.
So I think, being in the development role, I'm going to have a slightly different answer. And for me, I think we need to all look at funding and fundraising a little bit differently than we probably have been. One of the things that I heard was, it's not a handout but a hand up, and a lot of people say that. And even at the source, we don't believe in that. We believe in a hand in, right? So if everyone in this room has their hand in, if government has their hand in, if volunteers have their hand in, and the people that we serve have their hand in, then it makes light work. We can have this happen. So when you look at fundraising from the same perspective, government shouldn't be the one solution to this, right? There should be a ton of different solutions, and government should be the gasoline on the fire, right? So when you look at it from that perspective, I think that, I can't come in and tell you what this community needs. You guys know much more than I do. But I think that when we just need to look at fundraising a little bit differently. When my executive director took over our agency 10 years ago, he inherited $30,000 in the bank, and we were 1 month away from closing. When we changed how we approach everything that we do, now we are have an annual budget of about 2.2 million, and we raised 7.4 this year. So it's just about putting the people first, and then fundraising after that.
I have one more question, but then I think maybe the community has questions as well. Okay, but we have time. Okay, we have time constraints. What would make your job easier tomorrow if we could act on it?
I think that, one of the things that I see a lot is we all have these meetings and then nothing ever happens. If we can all just come away from this and say we're going to take one piece that we learned today and start doing that tomorrow, I think that in 10 years we're going to see a much different community.
Ditto.
I would say the same thing, but on top of that, I would just add every person in here has to walk out of here today with the charge and motivation to not accept the current environment, to not consider it to be something that when you wake up tomorrow is just something that you're going to work on again. No, it's something you're going to solve tomorrow. And every day focusing on the problem with that level of motivation and focus, we've seen over 84 communities in this country eliminate veteran homelessness. We've seen more than a dozen communities eliminate chronic homelessness. The way they do it is very clear. There's a scientific process to increasing the number of people who leave our homeless response system than the number who enter it every day, and we all have to, take accountability to achieve that.
Ezra?
We will have time for maybe one or two questions. Lunch is coming, so that's a priority for me. But Jacob, can you just take 2 seconds and talk about? I was introduced to Jacob at a Florida conference on homelessness, a session where he talked about an initiative that we've been talking about here in Palm Beach County for a while, and they're doing it in Broward. So if you could talk about community court, that would be terrific.
Yeah, sure. So community court is essentially a problem-solving court. It doesn't work much differently than your mental health or drug courts, if you're familiar with those. And Fort Lauderdale was the first one in Broward County. And when I walked into the room, I just have to say, I saw Fort Lauderdale's community court coordinator here. So if she wants to come up and say anything, feel free. She's telling me be quiet. Don't do that. But community court essentially looks to resolve misdemeanor repeat offenders through support services and housing stability. And so officers throughout the 3 municipalities that currently have community court in Broward, which is City of Fort Lauderdale, City of Pompano Beach, and the City of Hollywood. Fort Lauderdale started first, Hollywood came shortly after, and then Pompano, and they've all been tremendously successful. People attend community court after they've engaged with a law enforcement officer and have been identified to have committed a misdemeanor offense. They're then offered a notice to appear in lieu of being arrested, and they bring that notice to appear to our community court, which is set up in a room just like this, not a very judicial room, but rather one where all these tables that you all are sitting at is actually filled with every support and resource provider in Broward County. Comes together on one day each week, on different days of the week for the respective courts. Individuals come in starting at 9 a.m. It's open to the public. So while community court is intended and was initially intended to be that resource for those who are repeat offenders, it actually turned into something much more beautiful because over 100 people typically walk into community court on any given court day. They walk through all the resource providers, they get connected to treatment beds, housing plans, coordinated entry. All of our outreach and clinical professionals attend court as well. And then the officers who issued them the notices to appear are also there, but they're not there for a punitive type of interaction. Instead, oftentimes, they're the ones who will offer to pick them up and bring them to court to make sure that they get there on time. Then after the resources are all done in the morning, court starts, the judge begins presiding around 10:30. She sees cases that are on the docket, and usually there are a couple successful graduations, a couple new individuals. Anything I missed, Marie, that you want to add?
So the individuals who receive the notice to appear, not only we addressing the misdemeanor citation, we also addressing the needs that they need. It could be mental health, substance use treatment, case management. So this is the whole thing. It's a holistic court. Instead of them going to the court, it's the court coming to them to make them feel comfortable and to address the needs that they need.
Is funded a little bit differently in each municipality. Some municipalities are using general funds. City of Hollywood, for example, received a federal grant.
Okay, thank you very much. I just wanted to make sure that we did mention that because it's an initiative we've talked about, but we haven't taken the next step. We probably have time for 2 questions, and then we're going to eat. So does anybody have a question in the room? Of course, Patrice. Wait, Patrice, use the mic.
Now, I know with the Dignity buses, was that an original project to help seniors get into a bus, you know, to stay safe overnight? And does it go to locations to pick people up? I don't know how you're using your Dignity bus. I think you're...
So we have a program called Dining with Dignity, where we train individuals and give them culinary skills. It's a 6-week program, and when they are done, we help them get employment at one of our local restaurants in the community. So we started that program. We were training people, and then our doors would close, and then they would go sleep on the street, and then they would have no place to sleep, and we would expect them to show back up the next morning for training. So the Dignity Bus was birthed so that our students in our program had a safe place to be at night, so they had proper rest to be able to attack the next day, learn, and be able to graduate the program. So when we first implemented it, it was just for the students. We then opened it up to the community, so anybody who was coming to our service center for services could get on the Dignity Bus. We did start off by going to different points in our community where we know that our unhoused would populate and do pickups, and then eventually end out at the local truck stop, and we would stay there all night. As costs started rising, you know, we found different solutions. So now they register and they meet up at our service center. So that's where our bus stays at night. And we no longer use the generator. We have the electricity cord that we use now. So the gas and the generator gas, or I think it's diesel, whichever one, those costs have been diminished by staying at our service center. But the buses are created to be mobile, to move. So if that's what your community needed, that's what you would have to do, and that's how we started.
All right. We have time for one more. Jen, did you say there was another one? There it is.
Hi, I have a question. So can people from different counties access like the dental services that you provide?
So initially, yes, we were servicing anybody from anywhere. That's just part of our belief to remove barriers. Very recently, this year, 2026, we decided to just focus on the people in our county to get to a functional 0. Once we are able to accomplish that, you know, things may change where we may open it back up. But what we really hope is that we inspire other communities to create organizations like us in their community, because we cannot do it alone. And so if we open it back up to other communities, you know, everybody's just going to come here to our county. So we really want to inspire people. You don't have to be exactly like us, but, you know, you can pick one thing that you think you can do. Like Jake said, you know, go out tomorrow with a solution in mind, not just the motivation, but also like, okay, that's one thing I think my organization can do, and this is how we're going to implement it. So yes, we did start off that way, but currently not anymore.
Okay. Thank you. And thank you, Karen. And thank you, panelists. And thank you for sharing. And thank you for all the work that you do. Couple of housekeeping notes. Channel 20, our county's television station, is in the corner and they're conducting interviews with individuals about your concerns about homelessness and so on. We would love to have you participate. So during this break time that we're going to have, if you could step out and be part of that process, that would be terrific. Secondly, if you filled out a paper response to the Mentimeter, we'd like to get them back because that's going to help provide the data. So if you have them, Jennifer will collect them from you. Alex mentioned earlier that the Homeless Coalition has underwritten both your breakfast this morning, which I hear was really good, and lunch now. So thank you, Alex, and the Homeless Coalition. And we're gonna take a brunch, take some time to eat, hopefully have some opportunity to network, and then this afternoon we're going to go into the breakout groups to really begin the production of our next 10-year plan. So we really need you to be here and be ready to go to help be involved. Thank you very much.